Morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Sorry we're starting just a little bit late, but we are delighted that all of you are here at the Hall of Fame. And as you know, there's some that are in the room, and there are some that are connected with us by video conference. As you know, this is what we call our Heart of a Hall of Famer program. And Jerry Shockey is going to come up here in a little bit and explain more about that program. But it's all directed toward having someone who has achieved extraordinary accomplishments in their life to come and talk with students about how they did it. And I think as they do that, you can get some information about how you might accomplish your own goals and dreams in life. We're delighted that our speaker this morning is Mr. Alan Page. And you know, Alan Page is a man of extraordinary accomplishments in his career, including the fact that he now serves as the justice on the Minnesota Supreme Court. Many of you also know that he was elected to that position way back in 1992, and he served so well that he was successful in being reelected in 1998, and then again in 2004, and again in 2010. Now that's a significant enough accomplishment in and of itself to be on a state Supreme Court, the highest court in that state. But his accomplishments include more than that, and I'm sure that a lot of you know about his accomplishments as an athlete. He was an outstanding athlete, probably still is an outstanding athlete, and when he lived here in Canton, Ohio, and he was born here in Canton, he attended Central Catholic High School, where he not only excelled as an athlete, he excelled in academics. And I'm sure he'll tell us a little bit about that. After high school, he went on to excel again in both athletics and academics at the University of Notre Dame. He was an All-America football player at the University of Notre Dame. And he went on from there to play professional football, primarily for the Minnesota Vikings, but also for the Chicago Bears. And he played in 4 Super Bowls, which is quite an accomplishment as well. And again, he excelled so much in that part of his career that he achieved the highest honor that a professional football player can achieve when he was enshrined here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1988. Now, Mr. Page earned his law degree from the University of Minnesota, and he did that while he was playing professional football. He puts a high premium on education. And as you can see, many of the goals that he was able to achieve in his life were a result of the fact that he worked so hard to get a good education and put that education to work, both as it related to his athletic accomplishments and his accomplishment as a jurist. Now, I'm going to show a video here that Jim's going to show that gives some more information about Alan Page and particularly his playing days.
In over 230 straight games for the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. Alan Page was a member of the Vikings' famed Purple People Eater defense. Using his quickness and agility, Page dominated many facets of the game, including blocking kicks, recovering fumbles, and most importantly, making big tackles. These skills helped Minnesota reach the Super Bowl 4 times. The Canton, Ohio native was the 1971 NFL Most Valuable Player, a 4-time NFC Defensive Player of the Year, and an All-Pro selection 9 straight seasons.
Alan, as I said, is right here from Canton, Ohio, and all of us in Canton are obviously very, very proud of what he's accomplished. There are even books written about Alan Page, and his family is very proud of him as well. I understand there's a number of members of the Page family here today. Would they mind standing up to be recognized? There they are. There's the Page family. So again, Mr. Page is with us this morning because of his deep interest in the fact that he cares very much about young people getting a good education so that they can pursue their dreams and goals in life. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Alan Page.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for your warm welcome. What I'd like to do is just talk briefly about this notion of character. And we'll be talking about that through the session this morning. But it seems to me that sometimes as a people or as a country, we feel like we've sort of lost our, or losing our character. Well, you know, character is an interesting thing. The American Heritage Dictionary defines character as moral or ethical strength, integrity, fortitude. In a sense, character is who we are at our very core. It is not something that we're born with, nor is it something that develops automatically. It must be consciously developed. It's also not something that's static. Whether we're 50 or 15, 5 or 75, whether you're one of the students here today or a Supreme Court justice, you will be called upon again and again to renew your character. And I believe we also have some ability and opportunity to impact the character of those around us. Now, people of character take responsibility for who they are and for what they do. They, how do I put this? Well, the pressures and temptations that seduce us to try to make the easy choices rather than the right choices, that's what we have to figure out if we're going to be a person of character. And it takes a strong person. And I don't mean strong in the physical sense, because in the physical, character really has nothing to do with physical strength. But what it does mean is being strong in the sense of believing that each one of us has the ability and the opportunity to build our characters rather than to diminish it. Now, in reality, what does that mean for those of you sitting out there this morning? It means being trustworthy. It means saying what you mean, and conversely meaning what you say. It means playing fairly, respecting others, telling the truth, making decisions with others in mind, and respecting ourselves. It means working to figure out the difference between right and wrong and then acting accordingly. You know, there's the cliche, if you will, of what do you do when nobody's looking? When nobody's looking, it is important to consciously figure out what's right and what's wrong and do what's right. Not because somebody might see you and make some judgment about you, but because it's the right thing to do. I have had a lot of good fortune in my life, and that good fortune in part comes from my parents, who knew and understood the importance of both an education and the importance of being a good citizen, the importance of doing what is right. They also knew and understood the importance of being, of seeking excellence. And if there's any connection between whatever success I've had and how I got there, It is that connection to my family that ensured that I sort of walked the straight and narrow, ensured that I sought excellence, and that I understood the importance of being, and they never talked about it in terms of character, but the importance of having good character. Well, with that, what I would like to do is turn the microphone, this microphone, over to Jerry Shockey, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Justice Page. Let's give a round of applause to our President and Executive Director, Steve Perry, for opening the program. And I'd like to thank the Page family for being here today. Let's give them another round of applause. And before we get started, there are a few folks that I would like to recognize that helped make this program possible. Number one, right in the center here, if you can stick your hand up there, Adam Shipley. Adam Shipley is a part of our educational staff, and all the groups that are tuning in right now by video conference, he's the man behind the camera. So if you see a camera angle go off, we just yell at Adam for that. So let's give him a round of applause. And then you will notice, folks, as you've been coming in and been greeted warmly and escorted down here, our wonderful volunteers in the white shirts. Let's give them a round of applause as well. Now, Steve opened up this program, Heart of the Hall of Famer series. This started back in May of this year. And really the idea behind this, part of our mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to promote the positive values of the sport. And it's through this program that we can really promote not just the athletic side, but the character side. And one thing that can be said about most of our Hall of Famers, if their God-given ability didn't lie within pro football, they would have excelled in something else. And many of them have gone on, as you see a prime example of that in Justice Page here. So this program today is really designed to look into those core characters, those 6 pillars that I know of a lot of you have researched and read about, the trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, caring, citizenship, all those. You heard Justice Page already address many of those in his opening remarks. These are, as Justice Page said, they're something that's a part of you. And you guys have the wonderful opportunity here today to ask questions and start thinking about those, because I'm going to come to those here in just a moment. You have a wonderful opportunity here to ask questions of one of the greatest, not only players that have played in the National Football League, but one of the great individuals in our country. He's been awarded and recognized in numerous ways. The Theodore Roosevelt Award, we actually have a student that submitted a question about that. Goes out to one distinguished individual each year that's consisted of presidents, the great John Wooden, Bill Cosby, and also Justice Page was selected a few years back. So you guys have an opportunity to ask questions. I encourage you to ask thought-provoking questions of what it took, what barriers, what obstacles, how did he persevere through adversity in his life. So it's a wonderful opportunity to do that. So with that being said, we have, again, the volunteers. They have mics. If you guys can show your mics back there. You guys do have mics back there. We are going to open things up to questions from our student audience for Justice Page. But before I do that, I want to go to a question to open things up just to get the ball rolling. One of the groups that connected with us here today submitted a question to us and asked, out of the 6 pillars of character, trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, which one do you believe is the most important, and why?
I think well, it's hard to sort out which one is most important because they're all important. They all go together to create good character. If I had to pick one of them, it would be trustworthiness. Without trust, we have nothing. If I can't rely on you, if I can't trust you to do what you say, then there is nothing there. And so if I had to pick one, it would probably be trustworthiness.
Okay, well, thank you, and we will open up the questions, but before we do that, I would like to recognize those that are in attendance in our live audience. First of all, we have, and you can feel free to cheer for your school as I give a shout out to that school. Do we have the Timken Freshman Academy here? And my alma mater, A-Town Alliance, you guys up front here? Oh, come on. Jeez. Maybe they're ashamed that I'm from Alliance. Maybe that's what it is. Green High School, let's do a little better than Alliance. Do we have Perry High School in the house? I think Timken's got this so far. I don't think they're here yet, but Cheney High School, how do you... That was them cheering. Glen Oak High School, I know you guys are here. And then the Multi-County Juvenile Attention System here in Canton, Ohio. I know that folks are here, up front here. And then also tuning in through video conferencing. Again, like I said, or like Adam shared with you guys before the program, we have a student audience tuning in from all across the country. And we have, I'd like to recognize those schools. We have Riverside School and Hiddenwood School in Newport News, Virginia. I want to say welcome to your folks. You can kind of hear them there. We have Bennett High School in Buffalo, New York. We have Mountain Gap Middle School in Huntsville, Alabama. We have Gloucester High School in Gloucester, New Jersey. We have Axtell High School in Axtell, Texas. And then 3 schools tuning in from Ohio as well. Memorial Junior High in South Euclid. Ford Middle School in Berea, Ohio, home of the Browns training camp. And then Brooklyn High School in Brooklyn, Ohio. So I want to thank all of you folks for tuning in for that. So hopefully that gave you enough time to start thinking of your questions. So if we have some hands raised, we'll get the mic people. When you get the microphone, make sure you speak clearly into that microphone and loudly as well. And say your name, your school, and then go ahead and with your question. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat that question once it's been said, just to make sure that our groups that are tuned in through video conferencing get to hear that. So with that being said, let's see some hands out there. Some questions? Right there. Go ahead and stand up.
All right. Thank you. I have a quick question. Let me get to it. Mr. Page, what impact do you think the NFL, specifically the Minnesota Vikings, had on integration during your time playing?
And let me repeat that question, I'm sorry. For the groups that are tuning in, what did the NFL, specifically the Minnesota Vikings, impact did they have on the integration of the National Football League?
Well, when I came into the league in 1967, as, well, I was going to say as you know, but maybe you're young enough that you don't know, that we as a nation were in the middle of a civil rights movement that was very challenging. Up to that point, up to the early 60s, professional football had been integrated. In fact, it was integrated, I think, in the late 1940s.
Yeah.
Thereabout, but there wasn't through that whole time equal opportunity for all of our citizens. It improved over time, and by 1967, it had come a long way. Interestingly, my first roommate at Minnesota was a defensive back by the name of Bobby Bryant, who came from the University of South Carolina. And we would get questions about what it was like to have an integrated situation with the roommate. And it seemed kind of like an odd question to me, but evidently that was something that wasn't especially heard of. And, you know, we were good friends. And I suppose that was one example of change that was coming to the NFL. Eventually, Change came in the form of, this gets to be kind of a complicated discussion, but there was a time when there were no centers, people playing the center position. There were no African Americans because we weren't considered to be smart enough. There were no quarterbacks because black quarterbacks weren't considered to be smart enough. Over time that changed, and I think I was around to see some of that change happen. The Minnesota Vikings were, when I got there, the team was about, I'd say 30–40% African American. And so it had come a fair way by the time I had gotten there. And that progress continued.
Okay. Do we have another question? And the moment that he was referring to in the history was 1946. And for you students tuning in, especially in the Cleveland area, South Euclid and Berea, the Cleveland Browns signed 2 African Americans, Marion Motley and Bill Willis, and with the All-American Football Conference. And the Rams in the National Football League signed 2 guys, Kenny Washington and Woody Strode, that permanently broke the color barrier in the National Football League. And believe it or not, that was actually 1 year prior to Jackie Robinson doing so in Major League Baseball. So with that being said, the next question out there.
My name is Lennon Butler from Glen Oak High School. What's your greatest accomplishment, being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame or on the Minnesota Supreme Court?
And what was his greatest accomplishment, Pro Football Hall of Fame or Minnesota Supreme Court? We're watching this one now.
Put me in the lion's den and ask me to. They're both great accomplishments. They're different, however, and different in ways that make the comparison not quite fair. I love my football career. I played professionally for 15 years, loved every moment of it, tried to do the best that I could, and had a lot of success. Had more success than any one person is probably really entitled to. But in the end, playing football was just that, playing football. And while it's great entertainment, and great entertainment as it's happening and as we move forward, it really is nothing more than that, entertainment. The work that I do on the Minnesota Supreme Court affects people's lives on a daily basis. We, in our court decisions, play an important role in how our society is ordered. That goes beyond, well beyond, playing any game. Beyond that, you know, the work that I do on the court is something that will last. Clearly, what happens at the Professional Football Hall of Fame will last. But as an example, we had oral arguments this week, or last week. That's where we hear cases. And in hearing those cases and preparing for those cases, we go back and look at cases that have come before. And it is not unusual for us to go back and rely on cases from the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. The decisions that we make as a court today will be used 150, 200 years from now to help the people in the future sort out how society is going to be ordered. Thus, for me, there's no comparison between what takes place on the football field and what we do in the court.
And I think those awards and accolades, and I can give you a sheet here. Right here is just one page of the awards and accolades that Justice Page has received. Those are just an outcome of the hard work, the dedication the determination and all those.
Can I just make one point here? You know, it wasn't so long ago, although 40 years will probably seem like a long time to you, but it wasn't so long ago that I was just like you young people out there, unsure about what the future held, not sure what I wanted to do when I grew up, although I had the sense that I wanted to become a lawyer, but I didn't really know what that meant. And I suspect there are those of you out there who are saying, well, what does this all mean to me? The fact is that if you are willing to seek excellence, and if you are willing to work hard, and if you are willing to prepare yourselves, you can achieve whatever your hopes and dreams may be. If you want to be a lawyer, you can do that. If you want to be a school teacher, you can do that. If you want to be a business person or somebody who is a politician, you have the ability to do that. Getting an education, being a person of character, working to ensure that your character is good as opposed to bad, will allow you to achieve, and not only achieve, but choose what path you want to take. Opportunities will come along, but if you're not prepared for them, you might as well not have the opportunities. But if you prepare for them, you have the ability to become a Supreme Court justice. You have the ability to become a leader in this community. You have the ability to be a leader on the world stage. All you have to do is prepare yourselves, work hard, and take advantages of the choices that creates. I know there was no question, but.
Next question out there in the live audience. We have one back here, this gentleman.
My name is Elijah Farrakhan from Camp McKinley, and I want to ask you, well, how did you handle adversity growing up?
What kind of adversity growing up?
Yes, sir.
How did I handle adversity, and what kind of adversity did I have? Well, just like all other human beings, adversity comes along, and it doesn't discriminate between those who are successful, those who are not successful. It is always there. The most difficult thing that I've ever had to deal with, the most difficult adversity, if you will, was when I was 13 years old, my mother passed away. That was something that was devastating and hard to deal with, but with the support of family and friends, and with the understanding that just because bad things happen doesn't mean you get to quit. Just because bad things happen doesn't mean that everything else stops. You sort of learn to deal with it and move on. And hopefully, when bad things happen, we sort of figure out what we can do about them, A, to prevent them from happening again, and B, to overcome them. You know, it's a little bit like being in a football game in that respect. You know, you're out there and you're working hard and you're tired and you're beat up, and you want a certain play takes place and the other team gets a touchdown. Well, do you fold up your tent and go home, or do you come out and prepare for the next play to try to get if you're a defensive player, to get the ball back, if you're an offensive player, to try to score your touchdown. The other thing I would say about adversity, most things, it's important to understand why they occur and who's responsible for it. Oftentimes, we look for somebody else to point out as the responsible party, but in reality, it's us. And that means that we have to figure out how to create different outcomes. We have to figure out, well, if I did X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z produced this result, maybe next time I ought to do X, Y, and A, and maybe the result will be better. Or maybe it's A, B, C, and not X, Y, and Z. But it's working to figure out what the problem is and how to overcome it. And you know, another area that oftentimes seems like, or actually does, result in adversity is particularly if you're a person of color. People discriminate against you simply because of the color of your skin. What do you do about that? Because you can't change the color of your skin. Well, if somebody discriminates against you because of the color of your skin, or because you're female, or because you're short, that's their problem. It's not your problem. And you can't let them force you to be in the position of having to deal with their problem. Certainly, you have to stand up to discrimination when it occurs. But that being said, you don't have to take on the responsibility for it.
All right, well, thank you. Next question out there. We had someone over here, this gentleman.
I'm Demontre Hill from Timken High School. Have you ever had to come in front of a judge before as a defendant?
Have I ever had to come in front of a judge before to...
As a defender?
As a defendant?
Done the defense?
Yeah.
Actually, I have been involved in litigation in my lifetime, either as a plaintiff or a defendant. But yes, the most recent was my wife's car was registered in my name, and she got a parking ticket. And she got well, actually it wasn't a parking ticket, it was a ticket because of an expired license tab. And the fine was, 25 or 30 bucks. And the problem was that at least the problem as I saw it, was that I had applied for the new license tabs and sent my check in about 3 weeks before the ticket was issued. And I figured that wasn't fair. I mean, it's one thing if I didn't do everything I could to have correct tabs. Something else again, if I had actually done everything I could, and they just hadn't returned them to me. At the time, the state of Minnesota was having problems, and it was taking them 6 to 8 weeks or more to return license tabs, even though you only have a month's grace period once they expire. As it turns out, I was successful in that litigation. I avoided the $25 or $30 fine. Of course, I spent, I can't tell you how much money in attorney's fees and time to have that corrected. So, yes, I have been involved in litigation. Some might question my judgment, however. Even though I was right.
Now we'll go to one of the questions. It's from one of the schools dealing with your career as a Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. And this comes from Gloucester High School in New Jersey. And they asked, what case had the greatest impact on you and your character?
What case has had the greatest impact
It's kind of a specific question, but...
on me and my character? Well, let me just explain my approach to the law so that you'll understand when I say that no specific case has had a direct impact on me and my character. They all call into question how I am going to exhibit my character. I will tell you that. But I approach cases not from the standpoint of whether they're important or not, because they're all important. I approach each one in the light of, how do I make the best possible decision? How do I make the most fair decision? How do I ensure that in making decisions, I weed out to the greatest extent possible all of my biases? As judges, we're human beings, and so we have preferences. But if you're going to be a good judge, you have to be able to set aside those preferences. And so in the broader sense, on a case-by-case basis, I have to work hard on my character, on my trustworthiness, on my honesty, on my ability to set aside my own personal preferences to ensure that whoever the parties are in front of me get a decision where they got heard, where their arguments were treated with respect, were not just sort of dismissed, were considered and considered seriously. And that's an ongoing challenge. That's something that will never end as long as I'm on the court.
Question from the live audience. I think we have a lady up here. We'll go. Oh, we got one over there. We'll go over there first, and then the lady over here next.
My name is Sterling Moore from Timken Senior High School, and why did you want to become a football player?
Why did I want to become a football player? Well, football for me wasn't quite by accident, but it certainly wasn't by design. My brother, who had played football, was ahead of me in school and was playing. I had a cousin, Clayton Umbles, who played here in Canton and went to the University of Toledo and had success. Quite frankly, until I was a ninth grader, I wasn't much interested in football, in playing football, and in fact didn't start until I was in the ninth grade. But it was primarily because my brother played and he seemed to have fun at it. And then I took it up, and turns out I kind of liked it, had some success at it. But before then, I was one of those kids, when you went out and played in the park or in the street, and they were choosing up sides, I was one that was usually the last one chosen. In fact, I suspect there were times when they were choosing up sides, they were hoping there would be an odd number, so that the last one chosen wouldn't be able to participate. But football was more by accident than by design for me.
We had a lady up here.
Morgan Mattingly, Green High School. Have you ever doubted your ability to lead? And if so, how did you keep pushing forward?
Have I ever doubted my ability to lead? And if so, how do you keep pushing forward? I never set out to be a leader. Indeed, I don't see myself as a leader. I see myself as someone who has certain views, certain positions, certain things that I want to do or want to see done, and set about trying to accomplish them. And if in fact by doing that I have exhibited leadership qualities or become, quote, a leader, that's just the way it is. I'm not convinced that people who want to lead, and I suppose people that want to lead, that need to lead, can do it. But I just have a sense of where I think I should go, and if by example other people see that as someplace they would like to go, that's fine, but it's certainly not my intent to try to pull others along, if you will.
Now, if you've heard in some of his remarks, I think the one thing that you might have got from some of his remarks is a keyword, humility, and a very humble approach to his achievements and his awards. How important do you think humility is to your being and you know what you've done?
It's important to me. It's important to understand that it's important for me to understand that I am who I am and nothing more. I have some good qualities. There are those who will tell you I have some bad qualities. I haven't seen them yet, but there are those who suggest that I might. If, you know, those who, I'm not sure exactly how to say this, those who want to be seen simply because they want to be seen, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but the reality is that we're all human beings and we're all equal. Some of us, our talents are different, and the fact that I was considered to be a good football player, or am considered to be, or that I am a Supreme Court justice, doesn't make me any better than the people around me. It just makes me different. And I'm just not, I don't see myself as needing reinforcement from others that I am, quote, important. And so, long answer to a difficult and complex question, but a little humility never hurt anybody. And quite frankly, all the success that I've had has come with the aid and assistance of others. I'm the one sitting up here, but I represent the contribution that a whole host of people have made. We all like to think that, you know, the things that we do, we pat ourselves on the back and we're great and all that, but I wouldn't be anywhere without the assistance of many, 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 many people.
And there's definitely something to be said to that, you know, with you guys out there, and you know, understanding and being honest and with yourself, is that we all need people to rely upon in our lives. Understanding that we all have areas that we might have difficulty in, whether it's in academics, whether it's in athletics, certain area in athletics, is being humble enough and honest with yourself enough to say, hey, I need to work on this area. And there are people out there that will help you on that, whether it's your coaches, whether it's your teachers, whoever it might be. So it's a great point.
You know, part of this character thing you touch on, being honest with yourself, being honest with that person that you look at in the mirror, being respectful of yourself, being, you know, when we talk about telling the truth and being trustworthy, it's telling the truth to others and being trustworthy to others, but it's also telling the truth to yourself and recognizing what that truth is. And sometimes it can be unpleasant. But at the same time, if the self-truth is unpleasant, you're the one who can figure out, well, okay, I did that wrong. Let's not do that again. And next time around, it won't be so unpleasant.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
My name is Brian Dunn from Glenna High School, and what do it mean to you to be the first African American to get elected to the Minnesota Supreme Court?
What does it mean to me to be the first African American to be elected to the Minnesota Supreme Court? Well, the first things it means to me is they were a little late. I mean, I became the first African American in the Minnesota Supreme Court in 1992. There were lots of good lawyers in Minnesota who never had the opportunity that I had. That's number one. Number two, it means that at some level I have a responsibility to show that an African American can do the work and do it well. And I have sought to do that. All of that being said, what it really means is we made progress. And hopefully, the second one won't be so long in coming. Hopefully, well, we've gotten to the point on our court where we back up. We've gotten to the point on our court. I guess a point is a place, so I can use the word where, right? One of the things we try to do is be precise with our language. We've gotten to the point where women on our court have been represented consistent with the numbers of women in our population. Indeed, when I got to the court, we had a majority of women on our court. We have not gotten to the point where more than one person of color, African American or otherwise, has had the opportunity to serve on our court. Hopefully, that won't be too far behind. You know, it is important for us as a society to allow all of our people, no matter the color of their skin, no matter of their abilities or disabilities, no matter their gender, no matter their religion. It is important that we provide equal opportunity for everybody. For everybody. And sometimes we're a little slow getting there, as we were in Minnesota, getting our first African American on our Supreme Court. But we're sort of stagnant on the Supreme Court, but we've made progress in our other courts in terms of opening up opportunity. And we've just got to continue to do that both in Minnesota, but across the country.
We got another one right here. Another one right here. Or back there. Okay, we got one back there.
My name is Sterling Moore. I represent Timpkins Senior High School. My question is, how are you able to avoid the distraction and negative aspects facing you growing up in a rough inner city neighborhood on Pulley Hill, now named Allen Page Drive?
How did I grow up in a rough inner city and avoid the pitfalls, the problems, the difficulties that come with growing up in an inner city neighborhood? Quite frankly, growing up in any neighborhood. I had people who believed in me, who guided me, who on occasion warmed the seat of my pants when I did something wrong, who loved me and took care of me, were responsible for me. When I did something wrong, I knew about it. First of all, I knew it was wrong when I was doing it, usually. And more importantly, my family, my mother, father, sisters, brothers, and the community at large let me know when I did something wrong. And quite frankly, I didn't like what that felt like. And so over time, I've sort of figured out, well, feels better when you do things right than when you do things wrong. Sort of, if you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime. Well, I've never been one to want to do the time. So it gets to be real simple. It's sort of led me into a life's philosophy of do good and avoid evil. And with that philosophy, it's, you know, and figuring out the difference between right and wrong, life gets pretty simple. If you understand what you shouldn't be doing, then it's easy to do what you should.
And one of the questions submitted goes along with, we talked about the impact of your family on your early days. One of the students asked, who's your role model and what's your opinion on role models? Should we look up to athletes? Should we look up to the person that lives next to us?
My opinion on role models. The reality is that we are influenced by people we can reach out and touch. And not many of us have the ability to reach out and touch athletes, entertainers, what have you. But we can reach out and touch those sitting next to us, our parents, our friends. They're really the ones that influence us. I've had some people that I admire over time: Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, President Clinton, others. That being said, the reality is that the people that I most admire, in 1988, my wife and I started the Page Education Foundation. And that foundation provides financial assistance to young men and women of color in the pursuit of their education beyond high school. We require, we call them Page Scholars, we require them to go back into their community and work with young children in the area of education as tutors, mentors, and role models. Those are the people that I look up to. Those are the people that today inspire me, because they are involved in making positive change for the community that I live in, which will result in positive change for the world that we all live in. And that's what inspires me. It's something that simple. People doing good things. People trying to make this world a better place. To the extent that there are those in this room who do that, you inspire me also.
And he brings up a great point with his foundation. A lot of times on the news, we get the negative side of things, especially with athletes. But for every bad article you see written about an athlete, I guarantee you there's 99 good things that are going on in communities all across the country. It's amazing of how many have their own foundations set up, current players, Hall of Famers that have their foundations that are continually doing work in their communities, like the Page Education Foundation. So it's just something to point out. Remember, don't be, we talk about external pressures, don't be slanted towards what is put in front of you. Do we have another one over here?
Can I just, on this notion of who we look up to. You know, we talk about, as I say, we talk about looking up to athletes and entertainers, and we're disappointed when they let us down. We shouldn't be disappointed. We should use them as examples of what not to do. Sitting around feeling bad because they let us down almost glorifies what they've done. What we have to figure out is they did something that is unacceptable, and we can learn from that. So while there are positive role models, there are also negative role models. And when those people we put on the pedestal as our role models do something that we think is inappropriate, we need to acknowledge that and accept it for what it is, an example of what not to do. And I think we have to reinforce that with young people, because right now we almost glorify it. And we wonder why young people do some of the things they do in following in the steps of some of the misbehavior.
We have another one up back there? Yes, sir. And we have another one up front there.
Deshaun Hall from Glen Oak High School. And what was your favorite memory of playing football?
My favorite memory of playing football was dare I say this? Well, let me just say, my favorite memory was the day I left. I had a great career, but it was over, and it was time to move on. I had fun playing. The best part of playing football was, I'd say, were two things. One was having the opportunity to do something that involves seeking excellence. And two, the people I got to work with. And beyond that, it was, you know, I didn't have to go to practice anymore. I really liked that.
And we'll go to a question from Gloucester High School in New Jersey again. And going along with your football career, what would you say was your biggest disappointment in your professional football career?
How could I complain about disappointments? I played on, in high school, very good football teams. I played on a national championship college football team. As a professional football player, I won virtually every award that could be won. How could I be disappointed in anything? I have none.
It's a great perspective that we can all learn from in our lives. We had another one up front here. Oh, right here. Go ahead, sir. Right there.
Bradley Lineroad of Perry High School. As we are the future of America, what advice would you give us?
What advice would I give you young people? You know, you make a good point. You are the future. And the future is mostly about hope. And my advice to you would be to prepare yourselves for that future. And in preparing yourselves, seek excellence. Remember along the way that whatever success you have, others contributed to it. Others lifted you up. Take on the responsibility of lifting others up who are less fortunate than you are. There's always somebody less fortunate. There's always somebody whose life you can make better. And I would say be responsible, be trustworthy, be honest, be fair. And when you do that, your lives will be better individually. Our lives will be better collectively. If you do those things, you can make the future better than what it might otherwise be.
Okay, we've got time for, looks like about one more question. Who wants to be the last? Who wants to be the...
Got one right here.
End it on a bang here.
My name is Andre York, and out of all the plays you did, what was your favorite one?
Out of all the plays?
Oh.
Let me just tell you about my approach to the game. I never looked at a particular game, a particular play, a particular opponent. My goal was to go out and perform as well as I could on the next play. And if you start sitting around looking back and admiring the one that's in the past, you lose sight of the one that's coming. And so I've never spent a lot of time thinking about or being concerned about what was the best. My view, the best one is still on the horizon. The best one is still out there. In terms of my life, it's still a work in progress. And I don't know that I have contributed as much as I can yet, because there is still more to do. So in terms of football, one play is no different than the other. The question is, did you give it your best effort? And if in fact you did that, then let's get on with the next one. And if you didn't give it your best effort, give it the next time. I'm not one for sitting back admiring my work, I guess.
And throughout this program, you've brought up a lot of wonderful points from leadership, preparation. Just keep in mind that this is a learning experience for all of us. So I have my notes up here that I'm taking because I'm hoping to gain, and I have gained, something from this experience. Education doesn't stop when you get out of school. It happens everywhere. So, yeah, go ahead.
I'm still learning. I mean, this is a learning experience for me. Those, when you're in school, you tend to think, I'm going to get all this information and that's going to be it, and I'll just use it. Well, the learning process never stops. Never stops.
And when you talk about these character qualities, obviously they're personified on the field and in the team environment, but that same team can be transferred over to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, for example, under leadership, like our director, Steve Perry, could be the quarterback or maybe the owner of the team, what it might be. But if we don't work together, if we don't respect each other, if we're not caring of each other, if we don't have the integrity, the honesty with each other, we're not going to be successful as an organization. And so these character qualities, they transfer into every facet, and as Justice Page has already said, it's at your core. So with that being said, we're coming to the close of the program. I just want to see if you had any last remarks that you'd like to share with the group, maybe something we haven't touched on yet.
I think what I'd like to do is just reinforce the notion that each one of you, whether you're here in the live audience or in the remote audience, each one of you has the power to choose what your future will be. With that power to choose comes an awesome responsibility to make good choices. If you prepare yourselves, if you seek excellence, and if you're part of the choice is a good citizen, part of the choice is a person of character, you will find life can be very fulfilling and very successful. We talk about, finally, we talk about success and what that means. Some would say, I've been successful because I'm a Supreme Court justice. Some would say, I've been successful because I'm here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But the reality is that the success is in the journey, in the manner of travel, and not in the destination.
I don't think we could close it any better than that. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
And Justice Page, on behalf of the Hall of Fame and our director and our board and everyone, I want to just say thank you. This is just a terrific educational opportunity for these students and for all of us here. I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the family over here for being here. I want to thank all of you folks for being part of the program. So those of you that are here in the live audience, this concludes our program. You can go ahead and start your tour. You'll see the volunteers stationed out here. We also want to say thank you to our groups that tuned in through video conferencing. Thank you.